All right, we're all missing David Amram. What a gentleman. And this book, Vibrations, this came out in 1968. I mean, he's written many books, but if there's one book by David Amram to read, it's Vibrations. This really, about his whole life, about his work with Leonard Bernstein and Demetrius Mitropoulos, and I mean, really, this is a great book. Jack's in it, but Jack is by far not the main character in it. Okay, so this is David's book, Vibrations. Jack Kerouac was in town, so he agreed to be MC and do some reading too. We went to the Broad Art Gallery on East 10th Street and had the first jazz poetry reading in New York. The place was jammed even though it was pouring rain that night. There were no advertisements, just word of mouth. It really went over great, and when a drunk from the Bowery came in with a bottle of wine and offered it to everyone, Jack Micheline broke the silence by taking a sip and saying, "You see, the poets and the winos are coming together at last." Everybody laughed and we continued the reading with Jack and other poets in the audience coming up and reading their poems while I wailed away on the French horn. We had a big party afterwards. I hadn't seen Kerouac since On the Road had come out. He told me he would come by with Philip to visit me and that we should get together and do some more readings. Howard decided to have some evening at the Circle in the Square Theater with him and Philip and Jack as MC. Jack and Philip and Howard would drink enormous quantities of Thunderbird before the performance. But because I was playing, I only drank a little bit. After intermission, as the audience sat patiently waiting, they would usually be out drinking more Thunderbird or seeing their fans on the street, and I would be stuck all alone in the middle of the theater in the round, having to entertain people by myself. I would usually start off with some kind of sociological description of how jazz poetry was born, and no one could tell that I was kidding for the first few minutes. Just about the time that they would start laughing, I would play the horn to be serious again, and sometimes would play for 10 or 15 minutes all by myself right in the middle of the stage until the poets eased back in and began their reading. After a while, they liked it so much that this became part of the act. Jack was a fantastic improviser, and when I was playing, he would be able to make up words to go along with the music on the spot. He used his voice just like another horn, using words like notes. He had an extraordinary ear. Philip had a powerful dramatic reading style and delivery. Howard had a wonderful, sincere quality that made him sound like an old French troubadour from the past. I found that my theatrical experience helped me to instinctively time when and where I should play the horn and when I shouldn't. Sometimes I played jazz, sometimes classical music, mostly just music to fit the nature of each poem. I would always go off to the post office after the shows. One night when I was off, Jack invited me to go to Brooklyn College, where he was giving a lecture to a group of English students about his work. He told me Philip and Howard were coming along and said I should bring my horn. They all came by my place and we took the subway to Brooklyn College. It was supposed to be Jack's reading and lecture. He was to talk about On the Road and the literary influences in his work. He decided to bring us along to give him moral support. The bottles of Thunderbird started appearing, and by the time we got out to Brooklyn College, an hour behind schedule, all of us were quite torn up. The place was packed. Jack was one of the shyest people I'd ever met in my life when he was sober. Because he had struggled so long before he even discovered as a writer, his overwhelming success and the sudden pressures were a lot to take. When he was around a lot of people that he didn't know, the only way that he could face them was by drinking. Still, he always maintained his sweetness and kindness. As we lurched into Boylan Hall at Brooklyn College, where Jack was going to give a lecture, the students looked rather astonished. The English professor was very cool, however. He introduced Jack, who told a few stories and anecdotes, and then said in the tradition of the Zen master, he would let the students ask questions. When someone asked a long, involved question about whether or not Stendhal or Proust was more of an influence on his work, and whether or not Celine influenced him stylistically in any way, Jack would say something like, "You've got the answer in your question, and it's a beautiful answer." He was putting everybody on in a way, but in another way he was trying to show them that the writer sees it all in his writing, and for him to answer the question as if it were an English class would be dishonest. Finally, the students kept getting more and more hostile because they wanted to be told something definite. One student got up and said, "How come I love your books and the characters in your books and I hate you?" "You don't hate me," said Jack. "You love me and I love you." It went on like this, and the rumbling and the confusion grew more intense, until finally a cute little fellow with Harpo Marx curly hair bright blue eyes and an insane leprechaun smile, raised his hand and stood up. "Jack," he said, "when you take those trips out across the country, hitchhiking, walking, bicycling, sleeping out in the fields at night, traveling on freighters to foreign countries, and when you go to Mexico and out into the desert, doesn't your mother ever get worried?" Everybody in the place cracked up. He had brought the house down with his questions, and good vibrations were restored. So that's a section from David Amram's Vibrations. Like I say, he's written many books. If there's one Amram book to read, it's Vibrations.